Hey everyone, it's Naomi Wolf. And as promised, I'm back with the Geneva Bible and we're picking up at Exodus 26. So, those of you who were with us for the last reading, you remember that the children of Israel are in the desert, what would later become the Sinai Desert. And Moses has gone up to the mountain to basically get instructions from Yahweh, direction. And Yahweh is helping Moses understand exactly what Yahweh wants and needs in order to create a house, basically, to live among his family, his children. And so in the last reading, it was this mind-blowing ark. It's in the Hebrew, it was aron, which means literally cabinet or closet even, but it's a structure covered in gold, and it's got these cherubim facing each other. And Yahweh described, I can talk to you from between the cherubim above the kaporet. And you know that in English modern translations and the Geneva Bible too, that was translated as mercy seat. We talked about this. And in fact, it doesn't say mercy seat in the Hebrew. Kaporet could possibly be related to the same root as Yom Kippur, which is atonement, or not. It could just mean lid, like the surface, the lid of this aron, this cabinet, this almost cask-like, box-like structure. So I think that's important, and I made this point in the last reading because in English, the implication is that you need to, you're so messed up, you're so pathetic, you've ruined everything so badly, you're such a worm that you need to, beg for God's mercy just to approach where he lives, right? Just to begin to communicate with him. And that may not be in the original at all. Again, there's the possibility that kaporet is related to Kippur, atonement, but there's also the possibility that it isn't. And it's just God is like, I'll be there. I'll talk to you. This is like a radio receiver almost. And this is how I can communicate with you. So picking right up, I didn't show you in the last reading these incredible woodcuts that the Geneva Bible from 1560 has, but the people who created the Geneva Bible, which remember were dissidents, I'll just hold this up and then I'll tell you more. They thought it was so important. Here you can take a look at the actual cherubim there. You can see, and there you can see the kaporet, the lid. That's so interesting. In 1560, they actually illustrated it with a lid, which would suggest that lid is a more accurate translation than mercy seat. But there you have the menorah, which Yahweh gave direction about. Down below you have the table where the showbread is offered, the table of the showbread. And then we're getting into the next chapter, and here you have these beautiful fabrics, which these illustrators show as embroidered. They're embroidered with cherubs. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I just think this is so cool because these translators, and this is before centuries of Reformation and centuries of different sects and kind of branches of Christianity, and not to mention Judaism, right? So in 1560, these authors, you can really see right there, they're literally almost like architectural drawings for God's house. And you can see that, there's the table with the shewbread, and then there's a veil or some linens. And then behind that, there's the actual tabernacle, which you can see the wings of the cherubs right there. And all around, you see those rods with rings. That's for people to carry this structure with them everywhere they go. So Yahweh is basically saying, I need to go with you everywhere you go, and you can carry my house with you in this way. So a very, very literal kind of rendition of God's specifications, really, for his physical house among people, like God's apartment, among humans. That's literally what this is. And I really want you to pay attention to that, because it's not, I mean, yes, it's the Holy of Holies, and that's how it is in the Hebrew, and it's the place, the dwelling. I mean, it's super incredibly holy, but it's also super incredibly accessible and down to earth and among humans, and down to the level of Yahweh saying, you're human beings, you need to carry this, you have hands, so I'm going to add a way for you to physically carry this. That's how much attention Yahweh is giving to helping humans create his dwelling, place among them, not far away, not not distant, not unimaginable, very, very concrete. Catherine Freeman says, I can never get this to play, and she is concerned about that. So if anyone has advice for Catherine Freeman, please put them in the comments. And in the meantime, try to make sure you have enough bars, and I'll just jump right in. And if you can't, we will have the recording on Naomi Wolf Reads the Geneva Bible on Substack. All right, chapter 26. And the subtitle says, The Form of the Tabernacle and the Appurtenances, the place of the ark, of the mercy seat, of the table, and of the candlestick. Afterward, you shall make the tabernacle with 10 curtains of fine twined linen, and blue silk, and purple, and scarlet, and in them you shall make cherubims of broidered work. The length of one curtain shall be 28 cubits, and the breadth of one curtain 4 cubits. Every one of the curtains shall have one measure. 5 curtains shall be coupled one to another, and the other 5 curtains shall be coupled one to another. And there's commentary just explaining exactly what this looks like. And you shall make strings of blue silk upon the edge of the one curtain, which is in the selvage of the coupling. And likewise shall you make in the edge of the other curtain in the selvage in the second coupling. So to this day, Orthodox Jewish men, and actually my dad had a talit like this. It's called a tallis in Yiddish, or a talit in Hebrew. It's the ceremonial shawl almost. Yeah, it's a shawl that you wear when you're praying, and Orthodox men wear a version of this all the time. And you can see what are called tzitzit, which are tassels that have blue silken thread in them. And the talit itself has blue in kind of woven into it, into the white silk that descends from this instruction, as I understand it. 50 strings shall you make in one curtain, and 50 strings shall you make in the edge of the curtain, which is in the second coupling, and the strings shall be one right against another. You shall make also 50 taches, and this says, or hooks of gold, and couple the curtains one to another with the taches, and it shall be one tabernacle. So it's really like a tent that they're constructing, right? And he's saying this is how you construct the curtains to hang like a tent, or a structure made of cloth. Also, you shall make curtains of goat's hair to be a covering upon the tabernacle. You shall make them to the number of 11 curtains. And someone else is saying frozen. Let me know if anyone else is able to see and hear me, and I'll just keep going. The length of a curtain shall be 30 cubits, and the breadth of a curtain 4 cubits, and the 11 curtains shall be of one measure. And you shall couple 5 curtains by themselves, and the 6 curtains by themselves, but you shall double the 6th curtain upon the forefront of the covering. Oh, I see what that does. The commentary says that is 5 on one side and 5 on the other, and the 6th should hang over the door of the tabernacle. In other words, the 6th also creates a kind of door. Let me know if you can see or hear me, everybody. It's crazy that YouTube is still censoring, and now Facebook is censoring Naomi Wolf reading the Geneva Bible. Maybe this is more impactful than we even think. Why would they bother censoring it? 10 cubits shall the length, let me read that again. And you shall make 50 strings in the edge of one curtain in the selvage of the coupling, and 50 strings in the edge of the other curtain in the second coupling. 10, likewise, you shall make 50 taches of brass and fasten them on the strings, and shall couple the covering together that it may be one. And the remnant that rests in the curtains of the covering, even the half curtain that rests, shall be left at the back side of the tabernacle, again, to create like a veil. That the cubit on the one side and the cubit on the other side of that which is left in the length of the curtains of the covering may remain on either side of the tabernacle to cover it. Moreover, for that covering, you shall make a covering of ram skin dyed red and a covering of badger skin above. Also, you shall make boards for the tabernacle of shittim wood to stand up. 10 cubits shall be the length of a board, and a cubit and a half cubit the breadth of one board. 2 tenons shall be in one board, set in order as the feet of a ladder, one against another. Thus shall you make for all the boards of the tabernacle. And you shall make boards for the tabernacle, even 20 boards on the south side, even full south. And you shall make 40 sockets of silver under the 20 boards, 2 sockets under one board for his 2 tenons, and 2 sockets under another board for his 2 tenons. So no nails, no hammer, no nails. It's I think it's called mortise and tenon construction, where things fit together. In like manner, on the other side of the tabernacle toward the north side shall be 20 boards, and there 40 sockets of silver, 2 sockets under one board and 2 sockets under another board. And on the side of the tabernacle toward the west shall you make 6 boards. Also 2 boards shall you make in the corners of the tabernacle in 2 sides. Oh, this is beautiful. The comment on the margin says the Hebrew word signifies twins, declaring that they should be so perfect and well joined as were possible. Isn't that lovely? Also, they shall be joined beneath, and likewise they shall be joined above to a ring. Thus shall it be for them two. They shall be for the 2 corners. So they shall be 8 boards having sockets of silver, even 16 sockets. That is 2 sockets under another board. Then you shall make 5 bars of shittim wood, acacia wood, for the boards of one side of the tabernacle, and 5 bars for the boards of the other side of the tabernacle. Also 5 bars for the boards of the side of the tabernacle toward the west side. And the middle bar shall go through the middle of the boards from end to end. And you shall cover the boards with gold and make their rings of gold for places for the bars, and you shall cover the bars with gold. So you shall rear up, meaning raise up, the tabernacle according to the fashion thereof, which was shown you in the mount, on the mountain. Moreover, you shall make a veil of blue silk and purple and scarlet and fine twined linen. You shall make it of broidered work with cherubims. In other words, embroidered with cherubim on it. And you shall hang it upon 4 pillars of shittim wood covered with gold. Wrought hooks shall be of gold, standing upon 4 sockets of silver. Afterward, you shall hang the veil on the hooks, that you may bring in thither, that is, into there, that is, within the veil, the ark of the testimony. And the veil shall make you a separation between the holy place and the most holy place. And the note says, whereunto the high priest only entered once a year. Also, you shall put the mercy seat upon the ark of the testimony in the most holy place. And you shall set the table without the veil, meaning outside of the veil, and the candlestick over against the table on the south side of the tabernacle, and you shall set the table on the north side. Also, you shall make a hanging for the door of the tabernacle of blue silk and purple and scarlet and fine twined linen wrought with needle, embroidered with a needle. And you shall make for the hanging 5 pillars of shittim and cover them with gold. Their heads shall be of gold, and you shall cast 5 sockets of brass for them. And the note says, this hanging or veil was between the holy place and there where the people were. Well, that's very interesting, because in our kind of understanding of the Ark of the Covenant, the Holy of Holies, we don't think of people being inside at all. I mean, we only think of the high priest being in once a year. And that practice still descends to us. We who are Jewish, in that on Yom Kippur, the rabbi approaches the kind of what is the metaphor for the Holy of Holies, right? The Ark of the Covenant, the Ark where the Torah is kept, is opened once a year. And wow, I'm kind of getting chills because I've sat in Yom Kippur services my whole life. And it's always kind of amazing when the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark where the Torahs are kept, is open, because they're considered so sacred, that you treat them very carefully. You don't touch them with your hands. You touch them with a silver pointer. You carry them with wooden kind of holders holding them upright. But I think that opening descends from this time, thousands of years ago. These people in the desert going, "What the heck? We're getting a law from God. He's going to tell us what to do, what His commandments are, what His mitzvot are." And so that's very interesting that in the original, these translators, at any event, saw people there. Maybe they're referring to the priests, but let me show you again the holy place. And then you can see that division, and then the Holy of Holies, right? You can see that there's like a table, and then there's a veil covered in embroidered cherubim, and then there's the Ark of the Covenant in there. And I'm going to show you one other amazing thing, which is these translators were so committed to the truth and accuracy of this translation that they literally gave kind of a how-to. This illustration shows literally, there's the table, there's the ark, there are the implements for the ark, and they're numbered. It's almost a schematic. This is how they built it. That's how real these instructions are to these translators. And it's really like A, B, C, D, E, F, the height, 3 cubits, the breadth as much, the 4 horns or 4 corners, the grate, which was put in the altar and whereupon the sacrifice was burnt. Like every little detail is so real and so important to these authors. All right, let's go on to chapter 27. Moreover, you shall make the altar of shittim wood, 5 cubits long and 5 cubits broad. The altar shall be 4 square, and the height thereof 3 cubits. And you shall make it horns in the 4 corners thereof. The horns shall be of itself. I think that means not separate. And you shall cover it with brass. And the note says, or the same wood and matter not fastened unto it. By the way, that really kind of foreshadows, or has some foreshadowing of, I believe that when Jesus was crucified, he wore a garment, a seamless garment. So it's that same idea that it's not, nothing's cut in half, nothing's separate. It's all, this holy thing is one unit. Also, you shall make his ashpans, meaning the ashpans of this ark, for his ashes and his besoms and his basins and his flesh hooks and his censers, where the incense is burned. You shall make all the instruments thereof of brass, and you shall make unto it a grate, like network of brass. Upon that grate shall you make 4 brazen brass rings upon the four corners thereof. And you shall put it under the compass of the altar beneath, that the grate may be in the midst of the altar. So the sacrifice is burned right in the middle of the altar. Also, you shall make bars for the altar, bars, I say, of shittim wood, and shall cover them with brass. And the bars thereof shall be put in the rings. The which bars shall be upon the two sides of the altar to bear it, to carry it everywhere the children of Israel are going to go. You shall make the altar hollow between the boards, as God showed you in the mount on the mountain, so shall they make it. Also, you shall make the court of the tabernacle in the south side, even full south. The court shall have curtains of fine twined linen of 100 cubits long for one side. And then note says, this was that entry into the tabernacle where the people abode. The people got to hang out in the tabernacle. The people got to hang out in the tabernacle. There was a curtain separating them from the Holy of Holies, but they got to be in the tabernacle. This is incredible. And it shall have 20 pillars with their 20 sockets of brass. The heads of the pillars and their fillets shall be silver. And the note says there were certain hoops or circles for to beautify the silver. Likewise, on the north side in length, there shall be hangings of 100 cubits long, and the 20 pillars thereof with their 20 sockets of brass. The heads of the pillars and the fillets shall be silver. And the breadth of the court on the west side shall have curtains of 50 cubits with their 10 pillars and their 10 sockets. And the breadth of the court eastward, full east, shall have 50 cubits. Also, hangings of 15 cubits shall be on one side with their 3 pillars and their 3 sockets. Likewise, on the other side shall be hangings of 15 cubits with their 3 pillars and their 3 sockets. Likewise, on the other side shall be hangings of 15 cubits with their 3 pillars and their 3 sockets. And in the gate of the court where the people get to assemble, shall be a veil of 20 cubits of blue silk and purple and scarlet and fine twined linen wrought with needle, and the 4 pillars thereof and their 4 sockets. All the pillars of the court shall have fillets of silver round about, with their heads of silver and their sockets of brass. The length of the court shall be 100 cubits, and the breadth 50 at either end, and the height 5 cubits, and the hangings of fine twined linen, and their sockets of brass. All the vessels, meaning the tools, the instruments of the tabernacle for all manner of service thereof, and all the pins thereof, and all the pins of the court shall be brass. And the note says, or stakes wherewith the curtains were fastened to the ground. And you shall command the children of Israel that they bring unto you pure oil, olive, beaten for the light, that the lamps may always burn. And again, to this day in Jewish synagogues, there's an eternal flame. It's usually what's that called? A light bulb, right? But it is an eternal flame in memory of this direction, that the lamp may always burn. And the note says, such as comes from the olive when it is first pressed or beaten. So the first pressing of olive oil, pure olive oil. In the tabernacle of the congregation without, meaning outside of the veil, which is before the testimony, shall Aaron and his sons dress them from evening to morning before the Lord, for a statute forever unto their generations, to be observed by the children of Israel. So that is the reading from the Geneva Bible, and it's so exciting. The next chapter is going to tell us what the priests are actually supposed to wear. We won't get into that just now. Of course, that is for the next reading. However, I just want you to think, before we look at the Revised Standard Version and at the Chabad.org, at the Hebrew, what is an amazing takeaway? I don't mean to kind of be repetitive ad nauseum, but to me, it's amazing that the top of this structure in the previous reading showed that God is creating a way to literally communicate with humans, right? And he's been trying different things, right? I'll appear in a bush. I'm at the top of the mountain, but don't look at me or you might die, right? It's a struggle, right? I keep saying throughout these readings, God's never had humans, humans have never had God in a relationship, right? Obviously, humans have existed, but God has kind of, with the children of Israel, started a new project. Let's have a godly people. Let me take these like sort of animal-like, creations of mine, and let me try to have them have free will so that they can love me and be in relationship with me. Let me give them guidance in the form of commandments or mitzvot, direction, uh, and let's have a relationship on a more godly level, right? Let me bring them toward me, unlike all the other animals, and right now, unlike the other tribes of humans. That'll change over time. And as you know, I often see openings and invitations to the rest of humanity, even at this time, to enter into relationship with God. But he's creating this kind of um, model relationship as a way for everyone to be close to him. And he's literally saying, if he's literally experimenting, I think, with ways to talk to humans without killing them, without freaking them out, without you remember almost whenever God speaks to a human or an angel, gives God's instructions to a human being in these stories, the first words are often al tir'eh, which means don't be afraid, don't be frightened. Well, it's natural. Human beings are going to be frightened when a supernatural being is speaking to them, let alone God. So I really read the detail that went into these two cherubim and this gold and this, very elaborate technology that God has really spelled out here, being like God's given it some thought, not to anthropomorphize God, but this is a more sophisticated way, a more thought out way than we've seen yet, for God to try to talk with human beings and for humans to talk with God without freaking them out, without killing them inadvertently, without causing havoc or, fear. And I think that's very beautiful. It's honestly, it's like, I always think of the, parent-child relationship. It's like, okay, my child can't talk yet. I'm going to simplify my words so that we can have a conversation. Or really, like when kids are like 2 and they're just learning speech, they'll say things that are not really speech, and the parent will respond as if it's speech, right? And then through that iteration, they create a dialogue. Well, that's really what I'm seeing with these different ways that God is trying to figure out. Okay, send Moses. He's a very godly guy. He'll communicate this. Okay, I'm going to put it on tablets. Okay, now I'm going to create a way to live with you and communicate with you that humans can handle. And it's quite a lot of detail, because I think how can I put it? As a literary critic, to me, this sounds like a real technology, like we can't understand it now. I actually saw an amazing replica of the Ark of the Covenant in New York at an event on the 19th of June. It was incredible. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, what do we not know? I mean, as a literary critic, this level of detail, you don't waste 3 chapters on something that has no point at all, or that's, in my view, purely imaginary. So whether this, worked, whether the children of Israel thought it worked, whether it was like the, Delphic Oracle, where maybe talented oracles somehow channeled, universal direction, and the smoke and the censers and the sacrifices were kind of more theatrical. Who knows? But the detail makes it sound like this was a real thing with a real purpose that really worked, or else the children of Israel wouldn't have carried it around the desert for 40 years, right? Or, cared about it so much, taken it to their temple. I mean, this thing had a long life of being cherished and valued. And let's just go on a little bit and take a look at the Revised Standard Version. I just want to read the last paragraph. because the rest of it is pretty accurately translated because it's very technical, right? And you shall command the people of Israel that they shall bring to you pure beaten olive oil for the light, that a lamp may be set to burn continually. In the tent of meeting, outside the veil, which is before the testimony, Aaron and his sons shall tend it, meaning the light, from evening to morning before the Lord. It shall be a statute forever to be observed throughout their generations by the people of Israel. In the tent of meeting outside the veil that is before the testimony. So let's see what the Hebrew says, because I'm very, very interested in that last passage. What exactly has been set up here? What exactly are people invited to do, right? Well, the first thing I want to say is that in Hebrew, and we talked about this a little bit last time, the Ark of the Covenant is also called the Mishkan. And Mishkan is kind of hard to translate, but it's more than a thing, right? It's more than an Ark of the Covenant. It's a presence. It's a dwelling place. So in the original Hebrew, it's got much more of a sense of God lives here. All right. So in the Hebrew, you've got a lot of these technical instructions. They're very similar. And then we're going to go down. Oh, the one thing I want to say as we go down to that last paragraph is two things. There's a lot of artistic embellishment in the directions, right? Like there's a kind of a crown for the metalwork, for the precious metals. And there's filigree almost, right? And there's a lot of decorative engagement. And there's also, so there's a great deal of aesthetic direction. It's not just functional, is what I'm trying to say. You know, there are cherubs embroidered on the hangings. There are cherubs, you know, hewn out of gold. They're facing each other. I guess I just want to say there, you know, what is sacred? Art seems to be sacred to God, right? Like God likes art. God likes artistry. God likes beauty. And in case, like right now, we're in a time, as you know, I think, where people are, you know, what makes us human is being taken away from us and devalued. And one of the things that makes us human is the desire to create art, to appreciate beauty. And there's no question in this passage that art is of God, right? And that the artistic impulse is of God, and that God is an artist, and God wants us to be artists, and God wants to communicate with us through the medium of art and beauty. That's what I see here. Otherwise, it would just be, you know, directions for size, like very utilitarian, right? And it is not that. And the other thing, and maybe art is for us, right? Maybe God doesn't need art, but through art, we come closer to God. I totally see that here with these directions. And the last thing I want to say about the technical details, the directions God is giving, is when you keep reading purple and, you know, blue and finely twined linen, what you need to know is those are the most expensive, kind of labor-intensive fabrics of the ancient world. In fact, there was no chemical dyes at that time. Chemical dyes weren't invented till the 19th century in England, actually. I mean, dyes came from the natural world up until then. And so there was actually a huge commerce in the part of a shellfish that allowed for purple dye. And that's why it was incredibly valuable. And that's why purple was the color of royalty, right? So when you see all of this purple and blue and finely twined linen as opposed to coarse, right? Or, you know, other kinds of fabric, like remember that shepherds are basically wearing sheepskins, right? You're really hearing about the most labor intensive, the most beautiful, most expensive fabric that could possibly exist at that time. And I will just read the last chapter in the Hebrew and see what it is. Here we go. And so this is Ve'ata titzveh And now you shall command et bnei Israel, the children of Israel, v'ikchu elecha shemen, and they will take to you oil, zait of the olive, zach katit lemaor lehalot ner tamid, crushed for lighting to kindle the lamps continually. And then the last passage, the last paragraph is be'ohel. It really is a tent, moed of meeting, right? Outside the dividing curtain, michutz, outside, le parochet asher al ha'edut, ya'aroch oto Aharon, outside the dividing curtain that is in front of the testimony. Okay. Aharon, Aaron, uvanav, and his sons, me'erev ad boker, from evening till morning, lifnei Adonai, will be before God, chukat olam, a law for the world forever, ledorotam, for their generations, bnei Israel, the children of Israel, from the children of Israel. So why am I so interested in that? Because the name in Hebrew for this structure is not a tabernacle, which sounds very distant and very kind of ecclesiastical. It's not just for the priests. It's a tent of meeting. It's a tent of meeting, all right? And let's see. It's translated. This doesn't have tent of meeting at all in the Revised Standard Version. All the utensils for the tabernacle, for every use, and all its pegs and all the pegs of the court shall be of bronze, and you shall command the people of Israel that they bring to you pure beaten olive oil, that a lamp may be set up to burn continually. Oh no, it does have tent of meeting. In the tent of meeting, outside the veil, which is before the testimony, Aaron and his sons shall tend it from evening to morning before the Lord. It shall be a statute forever to be observed throughout their generations by the people of Israel. All right, fair enough. The translation in the Revised Standard Version is pretty accurate. But let me then call your attention to the fact that were you taught that the Ark of the Covenant is a tent of meeting? Were you taught that the people had a court to hang out in? Yes, separated from a curtain, but there was room for the people. Were you taught that that I don't know, that it was that inclusive a place for humans? I wasn't, and so that's very, very beautiful to me. And let's see, the other thing about the language in the tent of meeting, ba'ohel moed michutz la parochet asher el adut, outside the dividing curtain that is in front of the testimony. Aaron and his sons shall set it up before the Lord, meaning the menorah, from evening till morning. It shall be an everlasting statute for their generations from the children of Israel. Outside the dividing curtain that is in front of the testimony. Yeah, so the schematics of this are so interesting. The sacred menorah and the table with the showbread, right, is outside the dividing curtain. And the Holy of Holies is behind the curtain, but there's a whole courtyard with instruments and burning of sacrifices and a light that the children of Israel are supposed to bring, pure olive oil to light the lamps. And they're in the public, not public, like not holy, it's holy, but it's a space for the worshipers, for the children of Israel to hang out and be close to God. So I did not know that. I'm blown away. And that's almost all the time we have. Let's see what the comments are. And Yasmin 220 says, beautiful. You realize the effort that was made to honor our beloved Heavenly Father. I feel that way, and I feel it even more knowing that, the people were invited into this beautiful, beautiful place. And let's see, Yasmin also was responding to my saying that YouTube doesn't let us post these. She says, censoring the goodness of the three monolithic faiths. they want to divide us. I'm sure that that is true. I think when people know what the sacred texts of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam really say, they would not, we would not be divided, right? They're really all one set of beliefs at heart. In color says YouTube, God's word is too powerful for the weak-minded. Well, it's certainly too powerful for YouTube. Brave Pursuit says, enjoy your discussions. Messianic here. Share your lessons with serious learners. Much love. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, Sandy Hardy says, I'm descended from the Puritan Anne Marbury Hutchinson. Wow, she's amazing. Born 1623, and I know that she studied this Bible. She was labeled apostate and kicked out of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. We are in good company. Well, God bless your ancestress. She was one of the most inspiring people I read about when I read the history of the Puritans. She was a preacher, basically, and I did not know she read this Bible, but I guess it stands to reason that she would. And indeed, the reaction to her preaching, which was, as I recall, very much along these lines, like everyone's invited to hang out with God, basically. The establishment, as they always do when they coalesce and they have power, kicked her out and rejected her and penalized people who followed her, as I recall. Grafted into the Root says, God made sure that none of the Israelites were to even touch the outer curtain, as he had the Levites camp around the tabernacle, separating it from the people. Well, let's find out. We haven't gotten there yet. I'm not sure, because when I go to the original text, it's very accessible, right? So let's find out. Leah Call says, I read a commentary that God was saying from the beginning that his forgiveness is always available. Well, that's interesting. And, possibly, right? I mean, I'm certain that that's true, that it is, but I still think it's interesting that mercy seat may or may not be in the original, right? Then let's see. Grafted into the Root says, the new covenant is with the house of Israel and the house of Judah. Yeshua came to spiritually gather all 12 tribes together again with him as high priest. We aren't there yet, but that's very interesting. Hinaomi praise be Yahweh, says CV Burton. Thank you, agreed. And division is the illusion because God is one. I agree with that. The ark is a capacitor, gold inside and out, gives a shock. Gold is a great conductor of electricity. Well, that is very, very interesting, System Notes. And I can't speculate further on that. I'm not a chemist or a geologist or a metallurgist, I guess is what I would have to be. But that's really interesting, conducting electricity. I mean, who knows what God's presence or communication does to the electromagnetic fields. I know people who've looked at the Shroud of Turin are kind of amazed at, some sense of an energy imprinting that fabric in some way. These things are, very mysterious, but that's a very, very interesting observation. So let's leave it there. I'd love to leave with division is an illusion because God is one. I hope those of you who are following along, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, whatever, agnostic, atheist, I think that you are seeing that, I don't know, I don't want to overinterpret, but to me, the text is very, very friendly, very, very welcoming, and definitely unifying because there's really nothing in here that we've seen yet that divides us, right? Everything unites us. All right. Thank you so much. And you can follow these on Naomi Wolf Reads the Geneva Bible, which is on Substack. It would be great if you became subscribers because there are fixed costs always to producing and distributing these videos. And otherwise, please come to dailyclout.io. You can subscribe there. Come to my other outspoken Substack. You can subscribe there. Thank you, for being here. And I will talk to you maybe tomorrow. This is so much fun. It's very compelling, isn't it? Take care. Bye-bye.